The Young and the Restless spoilers. Wednesday. Kyle finds Claire. The scene was harrowing. Kyle burst into the room, his heart stopping at the sight before him. Claire lay motionless on the floor, her pale face a stark contrast to the dark stain of blood pooling near her head. "Claire!" Kyle screamed, dropping to his knees beside her. His hands trembled as he checked for a pulse. It was faint but there. Tears streamed down his face as he cradled her limp body, his voice breaking. "No, no, no. Don't do this to me, Claire. Stay with me." 911 arrived moments later, paramedics swiftly working to stabilize Claire. Kyle refused to let go of her hand as they placed her on the stretcher. "She's going to make it," he whispered, as much to himself as to her. "She has to." The hospital vigil. At the hospital, Kyle sat in the waiting room, his head in his hands. The doctors had rushed Claire into surgery, and now all he could do was wait. His mind was a whirlwind of emotions, fear, anger, and confusion. Who could have done this to her? Summer arrived, rushing to Kyle's side. "Kyle, what happened? Is Claire?" "She's alive," Kyle said, his voice hoarse. "But barely. Someone attacked her, Summer. I don't know who, but when I find out," Summer placed a hand on his shoulder, but Kyle pulled away, his expression guarded. "Summer, I can't do this right now." Summer frowned, hurt flickering in her eyes. "Kyle, I'm just trying to help." "I don't even know if I can trust you," Kyle snapped, his voice cold. "Not after everything." Summer's face hardened, but she didn't respond. Instead, she sat quietly, watching as Kyle's torment played out. Jordan's regret. Meanwhile, Jordan watched the news from a dingy motel room, her face pale as a reporter detailed Claire's condition. Claire Abbott remains in critical condition after an apparent assault. Authorities are investigating. Jordan threw the remote across the room, her hands shaking. "This wasn't supposed to happen," she muttered. She hadn't intended to hurt Claire this badly, but Claire's relentless pursuit had left her no choice. Yet guilt gnawed at her. For all her flaws, Jordan hadn't wanted Claire dead. She hadn't expected the sight of Claire's blood to haunt her, but it did, replaying over and over in her mind. She knew she couldn't go back, but she also couldn't look away. "I'll keep watching," Jordan whispered to herself. "If she wakes up, I'll know." Kyle's determination. As the hours dragged on, Kyle's despair turned to resolve. He couldn't sit idly by while Claire fought for her life. He needed answers. "Summer," Kyle said, his tone calmer but no less firm. "I need you to stay away from Claire for now. Until I figure out what's going on, I don't want you near her." Summer crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. "You think I had something to do with this?" "Kyle, that's ridiculous." "Maybe it is," Kyle admitted. "But I can't take any chances." Claire was trying to take down Jordan. Maybe someone else got involved. Until I know more, I'm not ruling anything out. Summer's expression softened. "Kyle, I swear to you, I had nothing to do with this. But if you don't believe me, I'll stay away." Claire's silent struggle. Claire lay unconscious, her body hooked up to monitors that beeped steadily in the background. She was alive, but barely. The doctors had managed to stop the bleeding, but they warned Kyle that the next 48 hours were critical. Kyle sat by her bedside, holding her hand. "Claire," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Please wake up. I need you to tell me who did this. I need you to fight. I can't lose you." His mind flashed to moments they'd shared, the laughter, the arguments, the quiet moments of understanding. He couldn't let it all end like this. The investigation begins. The police began piecing together the events leading up to the attack. They questioned everyone connected to Claire, including Kyle, Summer, and even members of the Newman family. But no leads emerged. Whoever had attacked Claire had been careful, leaving behind no evidence. Frustrated with the lack of progress, Kyle decided to take matters into his own hands. He began digging into Claire's recent activities, determined to find out who had wanted to hurt her. He knew Jordan was the prime suspect, but without Claire's confirmation, it was all speculation. Jordan's feared Jordan couldn't stay in one place for long, fearing the authorities would catch up with her. But she couldn't bring herself to leave Genoa City entirely. She needed to know if Claire would wake up, and if she would point the finger at her. Sitting in her car outside the hospital one night, Jordan watched the lights of Claire's room. "Come on, Claire," she muttered. "Don't do this to me. Just let it go." The turning point on the third day, Claire's eyes fluttered open. Her vision was blurry, and her body ached, but she was alive. The first thing she saw was Kyle's tear-streaked face. "Claire," he breathed, relief flooding his voice. "You're awake." Claire tried to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. "Jordan," Kyle leaned in closer. "What about Jordan? Did she do this to you?" Claire nodded weakly, her eyes filling with tears. She said she'd kill Sharon if I didn't stop." Kyle's jaw tightened, fury boiling beneath the surface. "She's not getting away with this." The hunt for justice armed with Claire's testimony, Kyle went to the police, providing them with the name they needed. But Kyle wasn't content to let the authorities handle it alone. He wanted to make sure Jordan paid for what she had done. Meanwhile, Jordan realized her time was running out. She had to disappear before Kyle and the police caught up with her. But she couldn't stop herself from wondering, had Claire survived? Did she name her? The lines between guilt, revenge, and justice blurred as the players in this deadly game moved closer to their inevitable confrontation. Kyle's fury unleashed. Kyle sat in the dimly lit hospital room, his gaze fixed on Claire's pale face as the machines surrounding her beeped steadily. Anger bubbled beneath the surface, his mind replaying her faint words, "Jordan, she said she'd kill Sharon if I didn't stop." His hands clenched into fists. Jordan had gone too far. Claire had been doing the right thing, trying to bring justice, and now she lay there fighting for her life because of it. The thought of Jordan walking free made his blood boil. He didn't just want her caught, he wanted her to suffer for what she'd done. When Jack entered the room, he immediately noticed Kyle's stormy expression. Jack placed a hand on his son's shoulder, but Kyle shrugged it off. "Kyle," Jack said calmly, "I know what you're feeling. But you can't let anger control you. This isn't who you are." Kyle turned to him, his eyes blazing. "You think I can just sit here and do nothing, Dad? Claire is in that bed because of Jordan. And I'm supposed to wait for the police? What if they don't find her in time? What if she hurts someone else?" Jack sighed. "I understand how much Claire means to you. But if you lose yourself in this anger, you're no better than Jordan. Be smart. Let the authorities handle this." Kyle clenched his jaw, his mind torn between Jack's advice and the fire of vengeance burning within him. Victor enters the fray. Meanwhile, Victor Newman stood in his office, his expression cold and calculating as he spoke to Michael Baldwin on the phone. "Claire is my granddaughter," Victor said, his voice low but commanding. "She was attacked on my watch. I want this Jordan woman found, and I want her dealt with." Michael hesitated. "Victor, the police are already on it. If we intervene too aggressively, it could complicate the investigation." Victor's lips curled into a thin smile. "Let me remind you, Michael, that I don't trust the authorities to handle this properly. I want results. If that means we step on a few toes, so be it." Michael sighed, but knew there was no arguing with Victor when he was like this. "I'll see what I can do." Victor leaned back in his chair, his mind already calculating his next move. Losing Claire wasn't an option, and if the police couldn't find Jordan quickly, he would. The investigation progresses. The police, armed with Claire's testimony, were working tirelessly to locate Jordan. They traced her movements to a motel on the outskirts of Genoa City, but by the time they arrived, she was gone. It was clear Jordan was staying one step ahead of them. Kyle, frustrated by the lack of progress, began digging into Jordan's history himself. He reached out to old contacts, searching for any leads on where she might have gone. But the more he uncovered, the more dangerous the situation became. Kyle on the edge. One evening, Kyle stormed into the Abbott mansion, his face pale with rage. Jack was waiting for him, concerned by his son's increasingly reckless behavior. "Kyle, you're spiraling," Jack said, stepping in front of him. "You can't keep this up. Claire wouldn't want you to throw your life away like this." Kyle glared at his father. "You don't get it, Dad. You've never felt this kind of rage, this need to make things right." Jack's voice softened. "I've felt it, Kyle. When your mother left, when I thought I lost everything, I felt it. But I learned something: anger blinds you. It makes you reckless. You need to channel that energy into something constructive. Help the police. Work with Victor. But don't let this consume you." Kyle took a deep breath, Jack's words sinking in. I can't lose her, Dad." "You won't," Jack said firmly. "Claire is strong, and so are you. But you have to trust the people around you to help." Victor's next move. Victor, unwilling to sit idly by, called a meeting with his security team. He tasked them with finding Jordan by any means necessary. Using his vast network of resources, Victor began tracking Jordan's associates, hoping they would lead him to her. He also made it clear to Kyle that he was fully invested in Claire's recovery. "Kyle," Victor said during a tense meeting, "Claire is family. I'll move heaven and earth to make sure she's safe. But you need to keep your head on straight. If you lose control, you'll make mistakes, and Jordan will win." Kyle nodded, his respect for Victor growing despite their past conflicts. "Thank you, Victor. I won't stop until she's brought to justice." Jordan's growing paranoia. Jordan, hiding in a safe house provided by one of Ian Ward's connections, watched the news obsessively. Every update about Claire's condition made her stomach churn. She hadn't intended to harm Claire this badly, but now she was in too deep. Ian's voice echoed in her mind, reminding her of their goal. "Claire is a threat, Jordan. If she recovers, she'll come after you, and she won't stop." Jordan wasn't sure if Ian's reassurance was comforting or terrifying. She knew he was right, Claire was relentless. But now, Jordan wasn't just running from the law, she was running from the guilt that haunted her. Claire's awakening. As the days passed, Claire's conditions slowly improved. When she finally opened her eyes, Kyle was at her side, tears of relief streaming down his face. "Claire," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You're awake." Claire's lips curved into a faint smile. "Kyle," he took her hand gently. "You're safe now. The police are looking for Jordan. We'll get her, I promise." Claire's voice was hoarse, but she managed to say, "Don't let her win." Kyle nodded, his resolve stronger than ever. "I won't." The final countdown. With Claire awake and able to provide more details about the attack, the police intensified their search for Jordan. Victor's team worked in tandem, closing in on her hideout. Jordan, realizing her options were running out, contemplated her next move. Should she run farther, or should she confront the people hunting her? Either way, she knew her time was limited. As Kyle, Jack, and Victor prepared for the inevitable showdown, one thing was clear: this battle was about more than justice, it was about protecting the people they loved. And no one, not even Ian Ward, could stand in their way.